Chapter 5, Section 3, The French and Indian War, Part 2. When we last left off, Benjamin Franklin had proposed the Albany Plan of Union, which was the first formal proposal to unite the colonies against the French. Please make sure you have out your Google Doc and complete the questions that accompany it, and make sure to submit through the Google Classroom when you have completed it. So we're going to pick up today with the section entitled Braddock's Defeat. Britain realized that to win the war, it could not rely solely on the colonists for funding or for troops. Therefore, the British sent General Edward Braddock and 2 regiments to Virginia. In 1755, Braddock marched towards the French at Fort Duquesne. George Washington was at his side. The Redcoat army of 2,100 men moved slowly over the mountains, weighed down by a huge cannon. On July 9th, on a narrow trail 8 miles from Fort Duquesne, fewer than 900 French and Indian troops surprised Braddock's forces. Washington suggested that his men break formation and fight from behind the trees, but Braddock would not listen. The general held his position and had 4 horses shot out from under him. Washington lost 2 horses, and 4 bullets went through Washington's coat, but, miraculously, none hit him. In the end, nearly 1,000 men were killed or wounded. General Braddock died from his wounds. American colonists were stunned by Braddock's defeat and many other British losses over the next 2 years. The British take Quebec. In 1757, Britain had a new Secretary of State, William Pitt, who was determined to win the war in the colonies. He sent the nation's best generals to America and borrowed money to pay colonial troops for fighting. The British controlled 6 French forts by August 1759, including Fort Duquesne, which was rebuilt and later renamed Fort Pitt after William Pitt. Today it is known as the city of, you guessed it, Pittsburgh. In late summer, the British began to attack New France at its capital, Quebec, in Canada. Canada sat on cliffs 300 feet above the St. Lawrence River. Cannon and thousands of soldiers guarded its thick walls. British General James Wolfe sailed around the fort for 2 months, unable to capture it. Then, in September, a scout found a steep, unguarded path up the cliffs to the plains just west of Quebec. At night, Wolfe and 4,000 of his men floated to the path and secretly climbed the cliffs. When the French awoke, the British were lined up on the plains, ready to attack. In the short, fierce battle that followed, Wolfe was killed. The French commander, Montcalm, died of his wounds the next day. Quebec surrendered to the British. The Battle of Quebec was the turning point of the war. When Montreal fell the next year, all of Canada was in British hands. The Treaty of Paris. Britain and France battled in other parts of the world for almost 3 more years. Spain made a pact in 1761 to help France, but its help came too late. When the 7 Years' War ended in 1763, Britain had won. By the Treaty of Paris, Britain claimed all of North America east of the Mississippi River. To reward Spain for its help, France gave it New Orleans and Louisiana, the French territory west of the Mississippi. Britain, which had seized Cuba and the Philippines from Spain, gave them back in exchange for Florida to Spain. The treaty ended French power in all of North America. Pontiac's Rebellion. After French forces withdrew, the British took over their forts. They refused to give supplies to the Native Americans as the French had. British settlers also moved across the mountains onto Native American land. In the spring and summer of 1763, Native American groups responded by attacking settlers and destroying almost every British fort west of the Appalachians. They surrounded the 3 remaining forts. This revolt was called Pontiac's Rebellion. Although the Ottawa War leader, Pontiac was only one of the many organizers. British settlers reacted with equal viciousness, killing even Indians who had not attacked them. British officers came up with a brutal plan to end the Delaware siege at Fort Pitt. A voice from the past. Could it not be contrived to send the smallpox among those disaffected, meaning angry, tribes of Indians? We must on this occasion use every stratagem in our power to reduce them. Major General Jeffrey Amherst, quoted in The Conspiracy of Pontiac. So what we want to do now is to go back and listen to that and do a SOAPS analysis. Who was the speaker? That would have been Major General Jeffrey Amherst. What was the occasion? That would have been during Pontiac's Rebellion in 1763. who is the audience, the intended listeners of this speech or of this article. Most likely that would have been to the superiors or equals in the military for the British of Major General Jeffrey Amherst. What is his purpose? That would definitely be to persuade. And what is he trying to persuade them about? That would be the subject or the main idea. And that would be specifically he wants to get the smallpox, the disease, all right, and spread it among the Indians, basically using biological warfare to kill them, or to use every possible strategy to kill the Native Americans to end Pontiac's rebellion. So the officers invited the Delaware war leaders into talk and gave them smallpox-infected blankets as gifts. This started a deadly outbreak using biological warfare. By the fall, the Native Americans had retreated. Even so, the uprising made the British government see that defending Western lands would be costly. Therefore, the British issued the Proclamation of 1763, which forbade the colonists to settle west of the Appalachian Mountains. So the Proclamation of 1763, which forbade the colonists to settle west of the Appalachian Mountains, was used to prevent interaction between the Native Americans and the colonists to prevent any further military action. This angered the colonists greatly. They thought they had won the right to settle in the Ohio River Valley. The British government was angry at the colonists who did not want to pay for their own defense. This hostility helped cause the War for American Independence, as we will cover in Chapter 6. At this point, it's the end of Chapter 5, Section 3, and the end of Chapter 5. You should be able to answer a few questions. First, how did the fur trade contribute to the French and Indian War? Second, why did the British begin to win the war after 1758? And finally, what were some causes and effects of Pontiac's rebellion? One last point, actually. Why did the French, British, and Native Americans fight over the Ohio River Valley? Think about how the British viewed the valley, think about how the Native Americans viewed it, and think about how the French viewed it. Make sure that you've completed your Google Doc at the end of this video and submit it through the Google Classroom. And we'll see you in class tomorrow.